Number 7. Jordan Stevens. On the night of September the 13th of 2020, the director of the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation held a news conference in which he provided the details of a violent crime spree that had spanned across multiple counties. The extended spate of criminal activity reportedly began at about 9:30 a.m. on the 13th, when St. Louis man D'Angelo Dorsey opened fire inside of a vehicle traveling along Interstate 24, resulting in one death and another casualty. Once traffic on the highway slowed to a stop, Dorsey exited the vehicle and fruitlessly attempted to carjack another motorist, who ultimately escaped unharmed. The gunman then approached a nearby truck and allegedly shot its driver in the face, following a heated exchange between the two. It was reported that shortly after the second shooting, Dorsey fired a round into the window of a female motorist's car, striking her in the hand before she drove away from the scene. Dorsey eventually got behind the wheel of a vehicle and rear-ended a car occupied by 23-year-old Jordan Stevens and his pregnant wife, Aileen. Believing the collision to have been an accidental fender bender, Stevens stopped on the side of the highway, at which point Dorsey reportedly took the couple hostage at gunpoint. He forced Stevens to drive to their home in Morrison, where he stole 2 firearms before leaving with the hostages in a different vehicle. They subsequently drove to the McMinnville area where Dorsey separated the hostages. The gunman then proceeded to fatally shoot Stevens in front of his wife before returning to the interstate. Investigators later detailed how the man's body was recovered along the westbound side of I-24. At the culmination of a high-speed chase between Dorsey and members of law enforcement, the former crashed Stevens' vehicle and took his own life. Aileen was found inside the car with only minor injuries. In the incident's aftermath, it emerged that during the couple's time as hostages, Stevens had begged Dorsey not to harm his wife and unborn child, sacrificing his own life in their stead. Number 6. Ashley Yuki Tiansen. Shortly before 9 p.m. on May the 14th of 2021, 19-year-old Ashley Yuki Tiansen and his girlfriend were sitting in the parking lot of San Mateo Adult School in California when their vehicle was approached by 3 armed strangers. According to a press release by the San Mateo Police Department, the assailants attempted to steal Tiansen's car, but when he resisted, they opened fire on the vehicle's 2 occupants. Tiansen reportedly used his body to shield his girlfriend from the gunfire, and in the process was shot in the torso. Emergency personnel rushed to the scene, and responding officers attempted to administer first aid to the victim. Tiansen was subsequently taken to a local trauma center, where he was pronounced dead. During the ensuing police investigation, it was determined that the violent carjacking had been an isolated event. Within a few days, investigators had identified and arrested a pair of teenage suspects, both of whom were charged with murder and attempted murder in connection to the incident. On the night of his death, Tiansen had reportedly gone to the school to pick up his girlfriend after his shift at the VA hospital, where he worked as a security guard. A GoFundMe page was created by the victim's family to help pay for the costs associated with his funeral. Number 5. Danny Humble. A man from Northumberland, England, was violently mugged in an underpass during the early morning hours of May the 29th of 2021. Subsequent reports detailed how Danny Humble had been walking home with his girlfriend, Adele Stubbs, at the conclusion of a date night when they encountered a group of rowdy teenagers near a tunnel. As the couple attempted to enter the underpass, the youths suddenly became hostile and began heckling them. It was reported that Humble then confronted one of the teens, after which the group proceeded to viciously beat the 35-year-old man for about 15 seconds. According to Stubbs' account of the incident, Humble, a father of 2, put himself in harm's way in order to protect her. She began desperately knocking on the doors of nearby residences and screaming for help as her partner was repeatedly punched, kicked, and stomped on by the teens. Humble was left unconscious by the attack, and the following day was pronounced dead while being treated at the hospital. Investigators ultimately identified Alistair Dixon, Ethan Scott, Kieros Robinson, Bailey Wilson, and an unnamed 17-year-old as the individuals involved in the deadly mugging. Following a criminal trial in Newcastle Crown Court in the summer of 2022, Dixon was found guilty of Humble's murder, while the other 4 defendants were each convicted of the lesser charge of manslaughter. Number 4. Rodney Clark. A violent tornado swept through Madison County, Iowa on March the 5th of 2022, destroying many homes and resulted in 7 total deaths. The twister reportedly reached wind speeds of between 136 and 165 miles per hour and registered a 4 on the enhanced Fujita scale, indicating devastating damage. One of the homes that was directly affected by the hazardous weather conditions was that of Rodney and Judy Clark, a married couple of 20 years. As the tornado approached, the Clarks reportedly took shelter in their bathtub. The house was ultimately leveled by the twister, which sent the couple themselves hurling through the air. While they were still airborne, Rodney reportedly laid on top of his wife and wrapped himself around her in an attempt to shield her from the storm and the incoming impact. The tub eventually landed in a pile of debris roughly 100 feet away from the Clarks' home. Rodney was killed instantly, but his final act of selfless bravery ultimately saved his wife's life. Subsequent reports detailed how the tornado was Iowa's deadliest since 2008, when 8 people had perished in the cities of Parkersburg and New Hartford. Number 3. Samantha, MENA. At about 8 p.m. on March the 26th of 2021, a pair of armed robbers accosted 31-year-old Samantha MENA's boyfriend at his apartment complex in the 4400 block of 15th Street West in Lancaster, California. MENA, having heard a commotion from inside the apartment, went outside to investigate, at which point she came upon her boyfriend's assailants and chased them to an idling sedan that was waiting for them in the lot. In an effort to prevent the would-be robbers from escaping, MENA reportedly stood directly in front of the car. However, the driver ignored the woman in his path and proceeded to run her over. As he fled the scene, MENA was taken to a nearby hospital in critical condition and, according to subsequent reports, ultimately passed away from her injuries. In the immediate aftermath of the incident, the Los Angeles County Police described the suspects involved in the robbery as being between the ages of 20 and 30. Officials also released surveillance images of the 3 men and requested that anyone with information about their identities contact the local sheriff's office. The following week, it was reported that one of the suspects, named as Jawan Tamel Welsh Arroyo, had turned himself into the Los Angeles Police Department in North Hollywood. According to MENA's family, she'd been attending school while also working 2 part-time jobs prior to her untimely death. Today's topic was inspired by Karen Kehoe. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Yesenia Gutierrez. A pair of teenagers were passing by an apartment in Fort Worth, Texas, at around midday on May the 18th of 2018, when they peered through the window and spotted a video game console inside. They quickly devised a plan to rob the home and subsequently gained entry into the apartment by kicking down the front door. One of the teens, who later told police that he was a member of the Crips street gang, held the homeowner, identified as Yesenia Gutierrez, at gunpoint and demanded her cell phone, which she willingly gave them without hesitation. According to a police report on the matter, 31-year-old Gutierrez attempted to keep the armed robbers from entering the room where her toddler was sleeping, killing her instantly. The victim's husband returned home to find her lifeless body on the kitchen floor, but fortunately discovered that their child had been left unharmed. The teens involved in the deadly home invasion were later pulled over by members of Fort Worth police. During the resulting traffic stop, officers found a 9mm pistol that was later forensically linked to the shell casings found in Gutierrez's apartment. They were consequently arrested on 1 count each of capital murder. Number 1. Danish BAIG. American rapper Travis Scott hosted the annual Astroworld Music Festival at Energy Park in Houston, Texas on November the 5th of 2021. When Scott initially emerged on stage at about 9 p.m., the massive crowd, which had reportedly exceeded the 50,000 attendee limit that had been set by local authorities, pushed toward the stage, causing a human crush. As was later detailed by subsequent reports on the matter, one of the concert goers, identified as 27-year-old Danish BAIG, used himself as a human shield to protect his fiancée from the tightly packed mass of people. BAIG reportedly struggled to stay on his feet as the crowd surged towards the stage, and although he did manage to keep his partner from getting crushed, he himself was fatally trampled. The victim's fiancée, who ultimately survived the ordeal, was one of the 25 attendees transported to the hospital after the incident, while 300 others were treated at the stadium's medical facilities. BAIG was one of 8 individuals who was killed on the night of the catastrophic crowd crush. He and his fiancée were reportedly supposed to get married the following month. As of the latest updates on the matter, the victim's family was looking into the possibility of pursuing legal action against Scott and Energy Park. Thanks for watching. Would you rather look after your 2-year-old nephew for an entire week or lose your vision for 48 hours? Let us know in the comments section below.